Hey there, I'm Lauren Lowry in the WSMV4 Now streaming studio. I've got Stacey Cameron with me. We're talking about a big story that's breaking right now. We've got it up on WSMV.com. Convictions against former TN House Speaker, Chief of Staff, vacated by U.S. judge. So it's really handy in situations like this to have an attorney on our investigative team. Stacey Cameron is that person. So Stacey, start us out with what we need to know about this story, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty here with what it means for Glen, Casada, and Cade Cothren.
Right, so this goes back several years, right? Our viewers will know this, our readers will know this, 5 years or more now, when Glen Casada, the former Tennessee Speaker of the House at the time, he was still a sitting representative, and his one-time Chief of Staff, Cade Cothren, had been arrested by the FBI, eventually stood trial on a host of political corruption charges, stemming around this constituent mailing program that Cothren was allegedly running under a fictitious name. Lawmakers didn't know who they were dealing with. They got state funds to send out these mailers. The government decided, hey, this is fraud, this is mail fraud, this is other things like that. It was a month-long trial back in April. Both men were convicted of a number of charges, close to 20 total, and were sentenced to a little more than 2 years in federal prison, both of them.
But then we had a big deal happen in November when President Trump got involved with this.
That's right, and most people were wondering, well, why does that matter? Because Trump pardoned both men just about 2 months after their sentencing was handed down, right? Well, this is even bigger. Really,
Yeah.
if you look at them from a legal standpoint and their day-to-day lives standpoint, particularly for Cade Cothren, the judge vacated the convictions and their sentences. And you've watched the movie Men in Black?
Yeah.
Remember the little button they had?
Yeah.
Flash your eyes and everything's gone. Your
Yeah,
memory's
it
gone.
never happened.
It never happened. Next time you and I talk about this, I'm going to say, what trial?
Yeah,
Glen
it never
Casada,
happened.
What trial with Cade Cothren? Because essentially now the trial never happened. They don't have felony convictions on their records anymore. And that is a lot different than a pardon. Because
Okay.
a pardon doesn't erase the criminal conviction. You can't go and get that, quote unquote, expunged. You may be able to, but it's far more difficult. This vacating their convictions means they're no longer felons.
Yeah.
All of the rights are immediately restored, like their gun rights, the right to vote, and some of those were already restored with the pardon, but some of them weren't, like the gun rights. And so it's a really big deal, and then it starts to have some, day-to-day, real life implications that you and I were talking about earlier.
So, and I do want to get into all of those. I want to make it very, very clear for people the difference between a pardon and like vacating. So when President Trump pardoned them, basically what opened up for them? What happened at that point with the pardon? And then we'll get to the vacating here in a moment.
That's a great question, because when that pardon came down, both men were just on the cusp of having to turn themselves into the Federal Bureau of Prison to begin their sentences, and they were both going to spend, like I said, well over 2 years in prison. So it ended that.
So they didn't. Now they don't have to go to prison because of the pardon in November of 2025.
That's correct. That's correct. And this vacating essentially does that too, but that just totally clears the record of it. That doesn't exist anymore. But the pardon, more or less, freed them.
So do they still, at that point, again, like we're taking ourselves back to November 2025,
Yes.
when the presidential pardon came down, do they still have felonies on their record?
They do. If
Okay.
you were to look up their criminal background, their history, their record, whatever you want to call it, that exists. They are convicted felons. They have multiple felonies on their record, many of them for fraud.
Right.
This vacating erases that.
Okay.
You can think of it in real world terms. It's almost as good as the jury just saying they're innocent, right? Because the conviction isn't going to be there anymore. This just says the trial never happened.
Yeah,
So-
vacating is let's erase your memory.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The easiest way to say it throws out the entire trial. It never happened. That whole month we spent in federal court.
Yeah.
It happened, but it didn't happen.
So let's talk. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
There's none of that on paper anymore.
So let's talk through the things that they, as convicted felons, the rights that they no longer had that have now been restored because of this being vacated.
Yeah, so, the big thing is their Second Amendment rights to own and possess firearms. That's back. They have the right to vote again. They have the right to sit on a jury. They have a right to run for public office. The pardon did restore some of that. They have the right to sit on certain boards again and things of that nature. The pardon restored some of that, not all of that. The bigger thing, especially for Cade Cothren, because he's a relatively young man, he's just in his 30s, a felony conviction for fraud, let alone multiple felony convictions for fraud, can just wreck your life financially. It can tank your credit score. It will make it difficult to open bank accounts in many instances. Banks may deny you loans.
Because they say you're not trustworthy.
You're not honest. That's fraud, and it's a felony fraud. Certain boards won't allow you to sit on their boards. A lot of employers won't open you up for jobs. Plus, it's a felony conviction, and in a lot of states, there's certain jobs you just can't hold. There's plenty of professional licenses you can no longer hold with a felony conviction, particularly a fraud conviction. Forget about working in any kind of financial business. That's done. It's over with.
Right.
Now, that's all back. They are no longer felons. They have no convictions on their criminal record. The judge had noted that before. Neither of them men had had any trouble with the law in the past. They'd never been arrested. They'd never been convicted for anything. And that's the case now. Neither one of these men are convicted felons.
So just to try to make this very simple and very clear for people, the pardon allowed them to not have to go to jail. The presidential pardon said, you no longer have to go to jail, but you still have a felony on your record.
That's right.
But the vacating said it never happened.
Well, let's go back.
No felony.
The pardon, you do still have the felony conviction on your record.
Correct.
It's like in Monopoly. It's the get out of jail free card. That's what
you just get out of jail.
Right. You just get out.
But you still have the felony conviction. The vacating, which came down today, means you no longer have the conviction. And it's to your point, I love the Men in Black reference because this never happened. You don't remember any of this now. It's gone, which is amazing.
It's really amazing, and it's going to help Cade Cothren out possibly because we broke the news just last month that he's considering a run for Tennessee House.
That's right, which he probably could not have done before. Or well, can you run for public office with a conviction?
You can. The pardon opens that back up, right?
Okay.
But there's going to be his detractors, the people that are going to come after him, and they're going to say, well, you're a convicted felon. You have a fraud conviction, and now he does not. The judge wiped that clean, and he can actually, in certain circles, use this possibly as a campaign ad or a badge of honor, saying, look, the federal government came after me. He's Republican. He's going to say it was the Biden administration came after me. I fought it. President Trump pardoned me. The DOJ even came back and asked this judge to just clear it all. I'm the good guy in this. The federal government hammered down on me as the bad guy. And so he may now even, get a step up, if you will, in the court of public opinion after this.
What I'm really interested in hearing from you, because again, if you're just joining us in progress with this live conversation with Stacey Cameron here, he's an attorney and he's on our investigative team. And it's really helpful in situations like this to speak to an attorney about how things are done. How does a vacating, how does,
weird term
yeah,
to say, right?
How does it come about? And is it something that I appeal to a judge or appeal to a system? How does this happen?
So there's a motion filed to the judge that oversaw the
by
case.
their counsel representation of the person who has the conviction.
Usually, not in this case.
Okay, even more interesting stuff. Tell me.
So usually, there's just a whole host of motions that a convicted defendant will file with the judge, right? You may want to get the conviction overturned. You may ask for certain things on appeal to get a new trial. You may ask the judge to vacate that because new evidence has come forward or there's some legal reasoning. In this case, it was actually the Department of Justice through the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Middle District of Tennessee that filed the motion to have the conviction and the sentences vacated on the grounds that President Trump had pardoned them. And there was no reason at that point in having the convictions there anymore. And because obviously the defendants were not going to oppose that, it was an unopposed motion and the judge granted.
Stacey, let's be honest about this. To the best of your ability here, how does something like that happen? Is that backroom phone calls?
I don't know if phone calls were made or not.
Well, certainly, but hypothetically, how does that happen?
It doesn't happen often. If you look, the government paid the money to try him during the Trump second term, right? Because this trial was in April.
Yeah.
President Trump had been inaugurated in January. The Department of Justice could have said at that time, told the U.S. Attorney's Office, or the U.S. Attorney's Office here could have decided not to try these two men at this point, right? But they went ahead and did that. It was only a few months after the conviction. They were sentenced, and then 2 months after that, they were pardoned. So if I had to guess, somebody asked the Department of Justice to file this motion.
Wow.
So it isn't typical. It's not unprecedented, but it's not normally the way these things work. You also don't often, again, not that it's not unprecedented, but you don't see judges vacating jury verdicts that often, right? It's
Okay.
a big deal
So
for
is
these two men.
is this a different judge?
No.
It's the same
It
judge.
has to be the same judge that oversees it, right? So this isn't on appeal. This isn't going, although they filed appeals. Right? They
Wow.
want to have this up. Now, I will say this in Judge Richardson's behalf. He had questioned this case legally the whole time. He said it was a close call, but he deferred to the jury's verdict. And I don't think, with this being unopposed, that the judge, gave it much thought at all, but to, simply grant him because he thought it was a borderline case to begin with.
So we've got this right now. I want to pull you back up to WSMV.com just to show you where we are. This is if I go to just regular old WSMV.com, the main story on the main page, convictions against former Tennessee House Speaker, Chief of Staff, vacated by judge. And I'm going to scroll back down here because we have the 2-page document that the Judge Richardson, who you were speaking of, this order that he made. And, you can read. It's literally just one paragraph. Literally just one paragraph. And on the second page, the clerk is directed to close the case file. It is so ordered. And this is Eli Richardson. There it is. And so I like to say in a flick of a pen.
Yeah.
In a flick of a pen, this was vacated. So accordingly, the government respectfully requests the court vacate its judgments. Defendants do not oppose relief requested.
And there's the key right there. Accordingly, the government respectfully requests. And by the government, that's the U.S. Attorney's Department here, the Department of Justice.
This is a fascinating case to me. I think I am curious, were you surprised when this came down today?
Yeah, I'm not going to say how, but I had a source call me. I was down at the legislature because I also do that, right? I moonlight as an investigative reporter. I
You
cover
don't
the Capitol
moonlight.
for us.
You
I do
are
all
an
the legal
expert
stuff.
for us.
And so I get a call from my source while I'm in a press conference with lawmakers, and I'm like, I wonder what that's about because
Yeah.
we're not dealing with anything. This person and
So
I
you
on
thought.
anything. So I thought. And I go out and I make the call, and boom, and then I look, and there it is. And I see both men have been vacated. Yeah, I knew the motion had been filed, right, by the DOJ.
But it's like a long shot, right? I mean, or in your mind, again, not unprecedented, but people probably make motions like this.
Yeah, you just don't often see it from, the U.S. Attorney's Office, right? So when that was filed, I was like, well, that's weird. But, the pardon coming that quick was weird because usually pardons don't come until after the appeals. Because the appellate court could have thrown all this out on the law. Said the law wasn't right, the jury didn't, apply it right, and these, either throw the verdict out or any of that. But this is actually kind of even all better than that because now the trial never happened. There was never a conviction. There wasn't a jury getting things wrong on it for the first off. So I think just the rapid nature of the pardon, then the order being vacated, or the convictions being vacated, the fact that the DOJ, I mean, yes, I was surprised by it, but I wasn't like gobstopped because this is just, as you said, even, you're fascinated by it as a legal geek. I'm fascinated by it, the way this whole case played out.
So we're playing video right now, just showing you Cade Cothren. As you mentioned, Stacey, he's in his 30s. He announced more recently he still has a political future. He is saying publicly, I want to do more in politics. I mean, this is my future. And he's expressed gratitude to the president. If you're Cade Cothren today, what are you saying? What's Cade Cothren saying today?
Oh, if I'm a religious man, and from conversations I've had with him, he dropped to his knees and he thanked God. He said he had prayed for it. I mean, because the easiest way to say this, it's a reset button. You ever played a video game? He hit the reset button on a console, and yes, he is out a lot of money for defending himself since 2022, right? But his life just came back in terms of what he can do going forward. He's not going to be, the chief of staff to the Speaker of the House, but if he decides to go back into politics, that door is, theoretically open. We'll see what the people down in, the district he's running for think. That's Lawrence County, Murray County, and some others. But the rest of his life, in terms of if he wants to get into political consulting, or if he wants to get into finance, or if he wants to do anything else, is back. So, oh my God, to have that conviction off his back as a young man in his 30s, it is just huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
He had to be having a great Thursday morning.
Yeah. Okay. So this is almost 4 years of his life here. We're looking at the timeline. 2022, to your point, Stacey, was when they were both indicted. They were convicted May 2025, sentenced. Yes, sir.
But it's really longer because the investigation, if I remember correctly, started in 2020.
Oh,
so
wow.
This has been nearly 6 years of his life. So they had it hanging over their head for a long time.
Yeah.
Until the indictment went down. He'd already hired attorneys and started to deal with that. I mean, at some point, probably it hanging over your head, am I going to be indicted or not, is maybe even worse than being indicted.
Yeah.
Now you can start to plan. So he's looking at nearly 6 years of his life has been clouded by this. You know, and you know, the same goes for, you know, Mr. Casada. His life, he's at the age of retiring and everything, and wasn't going to go back into the public eye, and so probably wasn't going to affect him financially like it would Cade Cothren. But it's a huge, you know, I think, relief for him, and I haven't spoken to him, but I will reach out to some of his friends. I imagine he feels vindicated.
Oh, well, certainly. And I don't want to keep you from your news gathering. We're coming up on time anyway here, a couple minutes before 2 o'clock. What do you feel like is the next question that needs to be asked? Because this does feel like it's a over and out, like, case closed. You know, Judge Richardson says, hey, and so it is. Order is there. Vacated, reset button. Here it is. So what's the next question you'll be asking as you move forward from this?
Well, I'm really intrigued by the politics of this. Will Cade now throw his hat into the ring and run? He's running, if he does run, he's going to be attempting to primary a very conservative Republican in his own, you know, home jurisdiction. Yeah. How will he be received by other Republicans at the State House? I know there's a small faction that are still in Cade's camp. There are others, particularly in Republican leadership, who are not. So I'm always intrigued by, you know, the Game of Thrones in politics at the State House. So that's going to be the next question. I'm curious, and I'll toss it to Cade probably this afternoon.
Yeah,
is this the definitive factor, or are you going to throw your hat in the ring now?
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, that's the interesting thing when the Republicans have a supermajority in the state of Tennessee, but it doesn't mean that everybody believes the same within that within the party. And so, yeah, I love what you're saying. We're going to let everybody go. Stacey, you go on. You go do the news gathering you have to do. I'm sure we'll have a report from you on air on WSMV coming up in the early afternoon newscasts. Thanks so much for your time and your expertise. None of this coverage could be possible without Stacey Cameron, the attorney, who's also on our investigative unit. As always, before I let you go, guys, want to pull this up one more time. At any point you want to read about this story more fully, you can see WSMV.com. It is our top story right now. Convictions against former TN House Speaker, Chief of Staff, vacated by U.S. Judge. You can watch the live stream that Stacey and I were just doing. It's going to be attached to this, and you can read that 2-page order from Judge Eli Richardson. Again, my favorite part of this document. It is so ordered, and it is done. All right, everybody.